when I worked at the retirement home, I worked by myself at night. And I always did like the weird things. Like I would leave the office door open and unlocked because if somebody came in, I could run there and lock the door. Or if the elevator would open, I'd be like this, like you're going to get me, because they would, old people are stealthy. Like they would just show up. And so I would get scared a lot. So I didn't like that.
I honestly, the 80s, like growing up, so two things happened when I was young that kind of shaped me in many ways. The first one was my mom loved scary movies. And I bet you some of our older cousins were invited to those like all night scary movie marathons. And I would never stay up for them. I'd go to bed, and I was younger, but I was like the most paranoid kid and I had a super active imagination. Yep. So I don't know that it's any better that I'm in my room by myself hearing screaming and, not just from the people watching the movie, but from the movie and the music and all that stuff. And the imagination just drove like wild. Mm-hmm. But then also when you're in those like early teen years and your friends are all watching these scary movies, The Exorcist, the like the Freddy movies. I don't know if those came out in the 80s or 90s. The like Halloween, one movie. Oh my gosh, this movie. I'm cringy embarrassed now, but it was. Did you ever hear of the movie called Chud?
Now that you say it,
this was where I don't know. Creepy monsters came out of manholes. Oh. So I watched this movie when I'm probably in about the 7th grade, somewhere in there. And Trevor and I met when I was in the 7th grade, and we met on a church trip to Banff, and we were kind of inseparable right away. Like we had a lot of fun together. He was very funny, but I was terrified of manholes to the point where I could not go near them. I'd get shaky. And like I just had this whole daytime, nighttime didn't matter. And try to explain to your little 12-year-old crush why you're afraid of manholes. And I probably played it up a bit too, but I went my whole teenage life actually being actually quite terrified, not of manholes, but just like in general. I could not watch any of those movies. I remember being at a sleepover and they were watching The Exorcist, and I had my dad come pick me up, and I had a very real belief in like the paranormal stuff and like kind of demonic stuff, and we grew up religious too, so there was a lot of that was kind of drilled into us that stuff is pretty evil and don't don't do seances, don't do Ouija boards, like you're not allowed to do any of that. But I wasn't one of those curious kids who wanted to try it. Like I know some of our cousins are like that. They're like, yeah, put me in it, I'll do it. But I was not that kid. I was really afraid. And it was so bad that when Trev and I got engaged, I like up until that point, I couldn't, if I were to go into the bathroom at night, I wouldn't look in the mirror. I was way too afraid of what would be looking back at me. And like this was real. It really shaped my life. I was very terrified of a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And I remember before Trev and I got married, we got an apartment, and he didn't live there because that wasn't the thing. I lived there by myself until, whatever. Lived there by myself until, but to get up in the night and go into the bathroom, and even after we got married, I was so terrified. I always imagined what would be looking back at me. And I had to retrain my brain was so intentional that I had to learn to not be fearful anymore. And it was like, I'm not fearful like that anymore. I have a much deeper understanding of a lot of that stuff. So I'm not afraid, but holy cow, did that shape my life. And largely because of those movies in the 80s, and that, like, it's crazy to think back now. I forgot about that. and how that kind of stuff can actually really shape
It
you.
can. It can. I was never a fan of horror movies ever. Well, because again, trauma. So I never watched a lot of horror movies until I was older. But when I got together with my husband and we were getting ready to watch like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I was like, we need to watch it at noon with the curtains open and all the lights on because I didn't want to watch it at night. I don't like getting
Oh,
scared. And so like the rule in the house is don't scare me because I'll throat punch you. Like that's my
yeah,
automatic
no,
reaction. Like if somebody's like,
no jump
and I'm like,
scares.
cool, right? And it's funny because I like to scare people.
My brother was the worst. I would jump out of my skin at anything,
Yeah.
and he would hide in the shower in my parents' basement bathroom when I went down there, and he'd jump out. And I don't know how long he was laying in wait. Like, I'm
Oh,
sure it was a while.
yeah.
But it was the one time I like truly bonded with my mother when I was a teenager, and she actually scolded
Yeah.
him for what, because nobody scolded my brother.
No.
And this time she did, and I'm like, oh yay, he did settle down after that. But I have a story I'll tell you, and it's not from the 80s.
Okay.
But is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna tell you
Some of my stories are from the 80s.
So I have learned to not be fearful. Like, I'm fearful in a normal, healthy way now, not in a crazy, like, become a hermit kind of way.
You can pass manhole covers now.
I can pass. I could probably even step right over one in the dead of night, and I probably would only think about it a little bit. Just need a little extra deodorant.
Yeah.
But so my one daughter loves scary movies. I have two stories. So my one daughter loves scary movies, and so our family, as we were raising our kids, was a little open door policy as well for other kids and cousins. So one of our younger cousins, so one of my nieces, I'll call her that. She's not a niece, but just one of the younger cousins was over for sleepover, and they were watching scary movies, and they were young, like they were probably 12, 13, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But they were in our basement watching scary movies. Now the rest of my kids were most of them were too young to watch it, but the ones that weren't didn't want to because they'd be scared. And I remember just deciding that, oh, I'm so bad. Now I remembered a third story. Okay. So this time, like those face masks that you can get to like for your skin,
Yeah.
but then they kind of peel off, right? And I had one that was clear, and I was upstairs, but when I come downstairs, they can see maybe in their periphery that I'm coming down the stairs, but they're not paying attention. They're watching the TV, lights are all off, and they're like, and they're thinking they're so like badass because they're staying up late watching scary movies. And I have this thing on my face, but it's clear. So other than it might maybe a little shiny, they can't really tell that it's on. And I go up and I'm just kind of standing beside them, and I just like talking to them, and I'm just like, can you guys pause the movie? And I'm like, wait, there's like something's bugging me, and I start to scrape it, and it starts to do this, and it's like peeling off, and they freak out. Like they thought it was peeling my face off. It was so funny. Oh my gosh. But we had another situation where we had an exchange student living with us, and this was when our older daughters were in high school. And so again, the one daughter loves all these scary movies. She's trying to always convince her sister to watch with, and the sister didn't want to most of the time, but this night they decided to do that, and they're the exchange students, so they're all watching these scary movies, and they're probably 15, 16, right in that age group. And they decide they're all going to sleep in one bedroom because they're scared, right? And it's late, and the bedroom door that they are going to go sleep in is angled slightly away from mine. So if you would only look into my room if you were directly looking down that hallway.
Okay.
And I put on this like old costumey pink floaty nightgown. I have dark hair, and I've pulled it like down down the middle. I've got, my face is already very pale, but I put on like pale, and I just stood there like this in the doorway. And the brave sister, the one that's like, yeah, haha, this is so funny. She has angled her, she's not looking at me, she's looking away from me towards, there's a little linen closet, and she's going to get some extra blankets out or whatever. And as she turns around, she's staring right at me, and I swear to God, the only thing I saw was feet as she flew head first into that room. And everybody, they're all screaming, going, what, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it was just the best joke ever, because she always like holds it over everybody how brave she is. And so this is so perfect.
Yeah.
And just one last story. We can edit this out if it's not right, but I love this. So I've trained myself to not be super afraid, like to put it in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like, good. And I can watch scary movies now. Most of them I think are kind of boring, but I don't like jump scares. You know, and I don't like gore. I don't like people being tortured, you know. But I can handle a kind of a bit of a thriller or something. And for my 40th birthday, my husband got me a caving expedition tour in Banff. And that's like a 6-hour caving, you know, you put on the jumpsuit and you're rappelling, you've got a harness on, and two of our kids came with us. And so the oldest, who loves this scary stuff, and then one of our sons. And I'm really looking forward to this. And it sounds scary, like I'd never done anything like that. But the night before, she convinces me to watch the movie The Descent.
Oh.
So The Descent is about, you know, go look it up. The Descent is about, you know, people going caving and what happens in the cave. And spoiler alert. So we know that when we're in this cave that there's going to be a 60-foot rappel. You know, and we've never rappelled, and they've told us you don't have to have any experience at this. We're going to show you what to do and stuff. Basically, it's like they just hook the harness up, and then you have to kind of climb down the rocks, you know, to the bottom, 60 feet. And I loved the whole caving thing. I thought I'd be scared, but I wasn't, until we come to the place where we're going to do a 60-foot rappel. And they say, okay, who is going to go first? You know, and I'm thinking, I just want to get it over with. So I'm going to go first. And so I get down there, and I'm down there, but the only light in this giant cavern, you can't see anything. You just have your little headlamp. And now my job is to hold the rope so the next person can come down. And the next person happens to be my daughter, who is now afraid and is taking her sweet time to get down this thing. And I'm down here alone. And all I can think is, if I turn my light, in which direction, what is going to be staring back at me? And I was honestly having a panic attack. And I'm just like holding this rope for dear life. I'm not looking anywhere except my headlight on the wall right in front of me. And I'm cursing my poor daughter to get her ass down here as fast as humanly possible, so I'm not alone, you know. But I was terrified.
Yeah, that feeling
it wasn't even it was scary.
Yeah. That feeling is unreal. Like this is a bit different, but we had gone on a trip, and I think it was like Cuba, and we went into the ocean, and I was fine until the waves started. And then my snorkel, like, it would go like this, and so I would see above the water and then below the water. And I started to panic, because every time I'd go under the water, everything changed because the fish were moving. And I've never swam so fast back to a boat in my life. Like, I could feel the terror. Like, there was a shark after me.
Just building.
Yeah. It was, and I had never been like that. I had been in the ocean so many times, but just that subtle change, I was like, I'm going to get my face in the water and something's going to be right there. And that
the ocean is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. We went snorkeling once, and I mean, I've made decisions in my life around doing scary things anyways.
Mhm.
Because I never wanted to be that mom that wouldn't do the water slide or
Yeah.
wouldn't do the roller coaster. Like, I don't love those things,
Nope.
and I probably won't do certain ones anymore. But I never wanted to be that mom that kind of sat on the sidelines. Um and the ocean is one of those things, right? Like things like snorkeling, it's just kind of scary,
Yeah.
and it should be because the ocean is not
Nope.
explored, and yeah, you should be scared.
Yeah.
But I remember going snorkeling, and of course nervous, but thinking, just go,
Mhm.
just go. Like the chances of anything bad happening are so low, anyways. And it was so I was the last one out of the water because I
Yeah.
loved it so much. But it's like we're gonna do another episode at some point around doing hard things.
Oh,
But
yeah.
sometimes it's the hard things that you not only do you appreciate them so much more because you did it,
Yeah.
but also it's like if I hadn't done that, what else wouldn't I be willing to do? So but the ocean, man, like I live near an ocean, and so even just paddleboarding out on the ocean, I'll do it for sure because
Yeah.
I don't want to like let fear stop me.
Yeah.
But definitely my mind is thinking, what could be
Mhm.
underneath? And we're in BC, so it's nothing too dangerous underneath. But
Yeah.
yeah.
For me, I don't like, I've gone snorkeling many times. I've done all of that. And that time it was just weird. But we did like the walk on the water, like the floor of to walk on the water. Um, the walk.
Wow, I didn't realize
I
you could
know.
walk on the water.
It's quite the trick.
I have a bottle of water here. Could you help me
Yeah,
out?
like just wait, I'll show you. It's great. No, we did the walk like on the sand where they like, they send you down with like a weight and you walk
I don't know what you're talking about.
like in the ocean. Like
Okay,
like
you're walking.
walking on
Explain.
the bottom of the ocean.
Okay, you say that like it's a normal thing. I've never heard of
Okay.
it. It's like they tie weights
Well,
to
like
your
your
ankles and you
helmet
sink, or what?
is really heavy, and so it pushes you to the floor, and then you
Okay,
like
I've
walk.
never seen that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yes. So it was like one of the excursions that we decided to do.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
of course, we're on a boat with like 50 million people. Like, it's not like it's just us. But we decided to do this walk on the bottom of the ocean. And I go down, and the pressure starts, and I release it. But I start looking around, and the mask, you can't see anything properly. So everything's warped. I have a
Mm.
full-blown panic attack because I'm stuck down there. I need help to get back up, and I all of a sudden feel like I can't breathe. Like I all of a sudden have lost the function to breathe like a normal person. It was terrible.
Oh no.
And so they tell you to do these signs, like one's up, and then there's like one, because under the water, if you, I think you like this, and everybody can hear it, and this is an emergency. Well, I started to feel like it was an emergency, so I wanted to like this, but I noticed the guy, so I'm like, go up, 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 and he's like, but he takes his time helping me to the ladder, and I'm like full blown losing it. I get to the top of the stairs, and I take my helmet off, and there is 50 million people watching me come back up. And one of the ladies was, what's the problem? I was like, yeah, that's not for me. I'm good. I don't ever want to do that again. And she was like, why? And I was like, it was bad. It was bad. I didn't know how to breathe. It was bad. And she was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to go. She goes and does the whole walk and comes back and says to me, wasn't that bad? I was
like, thank you.
Yeah, it was that bad. I'll never do it again. Yeah. I don't like that.
Well, we went swimming with whale sharks in Mexico, and they're young, like they're teenage. They come to a bay, and you don't want to touch them, like
No.
you're trying to, but you are getting in the water, and when one comes by, you're supposed to try to swim, just to stay with it. They're pretty fast. Turns out I am not, like, can't chew gum and walk at the same time. so I'm trying to like got my snorkel, got my mask, it's all nothing's working, and I'm like in the water trying to, and I'm like, I'm a pretty strong swimmer, but turns out, no, not so much, you know, and the guide is with me going, swim, 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 and like, it's swim. I was trying to breathe and not die.
Yeah.
Because my snorkel something was wrong with the gear. And I mean, that's at least my story. I'm sticking to it.